Good evening, everyone. President Macron will be coming within a few minutes. So I know that you've been told several times, but if you may sit down so that he can enter the meeting room. Thank you very much.
I think sitting in their seats silent for too long is also, I mean, she just said it, so she should hopefully be.
You're right.
And those who think, did anyone say that she was going to speak? The head of the WTO about fishery subsidies?
Need to take their seats. Please do not sit in reserve seats.
They're all
I know.
going to be, I don't.
It's the French will bring.
Okay, you want
Like you to say, yeah, the
Okay.
presidents are here.
Okay, everyone, if I could get your, ask everyone to please take your seats. The heads of state are in the building. They will be here momentarily. And then I'm just closing. So it is. Sigourney, did you want to? If I could ask everyone to please take their seats. Okay, they're in the room. So. Say hi to everyone. He's speaking second.
Yes, I know.
So we don't want him to. We want him to let you know.
Oh, yes. Oh, he's speaking first.
Très bien.
Maintenant, oui, absolument.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much
No,
for everything
thank-
you've done to help this.
We worked hard.
Yes,
Yes,
good.
we did.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Come on. Thank you. Thank you. What do you want me to do?
Yeah, so you can now introduce,
Okay.
if everyone can take their seats.
Everyone, please take your seats. It is my great honor to introduce His Excellency President Boric of Chile, a great champion of the ocean. Chile has fully protected more than 50% of its domestic waters. And it is the first and only nation to propose establishment of a fully protected marine area in the high seas off the Chilean coast. Chile leads a coalition of governments called the First Movers that are committed to working together to establish the first generation of high seas protected areas. Thank you for your leadership, Excellency. You have the floor.
Thank you very much for this summit. Ladies and gentlemen, President Macron, it's an honor to be again with you. Thank you very much, because We've been talking about this since a long time. You've been to Chile, I went to France also, and I'm really glad that we made it, because today we are happy, we are celebrating that we end up convincing other countries that this is important. It is a privilege to be with you on this occasion, and as we are celebrating the imminent entry into force of the BBNJ agreement. I remember when I went to sign the treaty in the UN about 2 years ago, I believe. 2 years? It was 2 years ago. We were the second country after Fiji, I think, or some. No? Malau, after Malau. Palau, sorry, after Palau. We were the second country, and we were wondering why there's not a line, like a queue, like a big line waiting for presidents to sign this treaty. And, well, my foreign affairs minister told me, and my minister of environmental affairs, they told me that this would take long. But it has taken longer than we thought. It has been 20 years since we started this discussion. I was underage at that time, I believe. So I'm really glad that you made it. To all of you that have been working on this since such a long time. I would like to express my gratitude to President Macron and the French government for their dedication and perseverance in securing the first 60 ratifications, because the conference that was held in Nice, which I couldn't attend because my daughter was coming to life at that time, in those days, but my ministers represented me, was a key point, a turning point, boosting ratification's efforts worldwide and contributing to add more than 20 new parties to the treaty. If it weren't for the Conference of Nice, we wouldn't be here. So thank you very much, President Macron. I know you have... I know you have a lot of issues to deal with in France, but I really recognize the leadership you've taken abroad. I read the essay, or I don't know the name of the text that Emmanuel Carrer did about the trip with you to Greenland. Did you read it? Yeah, it was really great, and it really sees how your leadership is making things happen like this. So thank you very much. And France and Chile are united by a strong and clear dedication to preserving our oceans and marine biodiversity, a commitment that we strengthened at the end of last year in Chile with President Macron aboard the icebreaker Almirante Viel, which this year had its first expedition to Antarctica. And we are really glad because our Navy is putting their main efforts into science, into investigations, not going to war, not missiles or stuff like that. We are putting our efforts of the Navy on protecting our oceans, and we are really proud of that. Also, but we know that building on what has been achieved, we must work together to ensure the effective implementation of the agreement, particularly regarding the marine protected areas into the high seas. I'm really glad that here are with us the Major of Juan Fernandez. Where is he? The Major. I don't know if you know where Juan Fernandez is. There are also representatives from Easter Island. I saw someone from Easter Island also over there. Chile is a three-continental country. We are in South America, we are in Antarctica, and we are in Oceania. And we are really proud of our presence there with the Easter Island. We are really proud of our presence in the high seas with Juan Fernandez and Las Desventuradas. And we are protecting the area. And I really want to thank the Major and the community, because it's not only politicians, it's the community that are working really hard. And they have convinced us to protect this area. So thank you very much. Also to Senator Lagos Weber. I don't know if he's here somewhere. Senator, you've done a great job on it also. Ricardo Lagos Weber. Well, as you know, Chile is deeply connected to the sea. We have 7,600 kilometers of coasts, and we have a lot to protect in biodiversity. This is why, in collaboration with more than 10 countries and multiple stakeholders, Chile launched the BBNJ Pioneers Initiative, a voluntary space dedicated to creating a portfolio on the first marine protected areas under this agreement. And I'm pleased to share that this initiative, which seeks to enrich scientific knowledge and promote international partnership, has already begun to develop its first proposals. I would like also to highlight that this initiative includes our own process to protect one of the areas with the greatest biodiversity of the world, the Nazca and Salas y Gomez Ridge in the Pacific Ocean. Although the protected area is within the national jurisdiction of Chile and Peru, more than 70% of this incredible ecosystem lies beyond national jurisdiction and remains unprotected. Also, I mentioned in my speech in the UN, in the General Assembly today, that we are pushing for the approval of the commitment to protect also the seas of Antarctica. And we are working really hard on that because we are truly convinced that Antarctica should maintain itself as a country of science and peace and not for mining, for example. So, finishing, caring for the environment, biodiversity, and the wealth of our oceans is an unavoidable responsibility to the future generations. Today, once again, I invite you, all the delegations, to join us in this vital task, especially those that might be considering promoting specific marine protected areas or areas-based management tools in the high seas, and to contribute to the swift implementations of the treaty. The first COP of the agreement will be held soon, most likely in 2026. We hope that it could be in the first months of 2026, and there is a lot of work ahead, and of course we have to decide where is going to be the secretary of the treaty. As you know, we have proposed Valparaíso to host the secretary of the treaty, and we would love that you can support us on that. I understand that Belgium also has proposed their country as host, so you will have to decide. And Chile is much better than no, respects to Belgium. And well, as a country that looks to the Pacific Ocean with hope, we call for the rapid and successful institutional implementation of the BBNJ agreement, because the protection of the ocean life, ecosystems and biodiversity cannot wait any longer, and that's why we are here and we are working on it. Thank you very much.
His Excellency Emmanuel Macron, who needs no introduction, but I will do it anyway. President of France is a champion of the ocean, and the tireless efforts of France over the last 2 years have been instrumental in securing 60 ratifications of the High Seas Treaty. I think we can all safely say that we would not be here today were it not for the leadership of you and your team. On behalf of the ocean and all of us here, thank you so much, and merci. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President, Prime Ministers, Ministers, Ambassadors, heads of international organizations, ladies and gentlemen. I'm extremely happy to be here with you tonight, and thank you very much, President Boric, for your words and your commitment. And we're here together, and indeed, in fact, it didn't start in Nice, but largely before, and thanks to a lot of you, and your personal commitments, and sometimes your very personal decisions to step up and to decide that things could change. And the decision of some individuals or some head of states and governments and some indigenous people deciding to change the world and to say there is clearly something we have to do for our oceans, because this is a treasure for the whole world. In terms of biodiversity, this is a key game changer in terms of carbon capture. And in this nexus of biodiversity and climate change, oceans is such a challenge. It's such a way to fix so many issues we have. So we worked very hard. You started to work very hard years and years and years ago, and thanks to your commitment, we started indeed to protect some marine areas. So we are part of these countries where in Chile and France we delivered our commitment. We are at 32% of our marine areas being protected in France, and we will follow up what we decided with first a coalition, and we implemented in Kunming-Montréal in order to make it a global standard. And it's very important because in our exclusive zone, it's the best way indeed to protect our biodiversity, our different systems, and to change the organization. And this is something we delivered during the past few years, all together. It was a very first important step to preserve this biodiversity. And for France, it's very important because, as you know, we are the second largest marine areas in the world. But it was quite clear that it was not sufficient, and why? Because 65% of the oceans are beyond these exclusive zones. And it was the Wild West, without any regulation. 65% of our oceans. And with obviously a lot of consequences on a lot of species, a lot of consequences in terms of biodiversity and so on. And it was the core of this fight, as you mentioned, Gabriel, decades ago when we started to have this famous BBNJ. And during years and years and years, it was a sort of endless process. And I want to thank all those who made it possible a few years ago just to finalize the negotiation and sign the BBNJ. It was clearly a game changer. And you made this change happen, and the signature of BBNJ, thanks to your capacity to convince China to align some others, was a game changer in order to make it possible and have 60% of our oceans now being regulated like that. But it was just the beginning of a second challenge. Because if you refer to another very famous treaty, Montego, it took 12 years to be enforced. 12 years before a sufficient number of ratification to make it real. And it was a core challenge in Nice. And this is why I wanted to make this introduction to go to Nice. And in Nice, we were all together. We were very much inspired by all of you. And I want to thank Olivier, the team, the French team, and all your delegations for this wonderful job you made all together. And we have one objective. First, we wanted to start with science. And I want to thank our scientists being present, all the institutions, the individuals, because we had 1 week based on science to say, okay, what the decision we will take, it should be inspired and based on science. Because probably you notice that we live in a world where sometimes there is no even basic fundamentals, and you can say, okay, this is a plot. It's not sure that we have climate change. It's not so sure that we have the species being challenged. So science was the basics. We did it. Second, it was a move where head of state and government, NGOs, indigenous people worked closely together in order to mobilize the entire world. The second objective was the ratification of BBNJ, the sufficient number of ratification for BBNJ. And tonight, we are 68 countries 68. With the full ratification being with, all the procedures at the UN and so on. So it means that now I speak under the control of my people. In 120 days, yes, it will be enforced. So it will be totally real. So it's clearly a huge change in terms of global governance, and will be 100 for the first COP for oceans in 2026, Gabriel, as you mentioned, precisely to work together and to follow up. So this is clearly a revolution. Now, I'm super happy with that. But I want to understand how it will be implemented. So we started with the idea, you signed BBNJ, after they explained to me, okay, now you have to ratify. We ratified 68 because the minimum is 60. So 120 days, super. We will have the regulation for 65% of our oceans. Now, how to make it real? This is about the enforcement. So now we will start a new phase. Let's work hard together to make sure that we have a bunch of governments working together to make sure that we mobilize our navies, we mobilize a sufficient number of capacities in order to protect, exactly as you mentioned, to discover, to make science, and to protect our oceans against illegal fisheries and so on. And how to make sure that we mobilize the private sectors as well for this enforcement. So Andrew, you want to be part of the gang? Some governments here want to be part of the gang, so I count on you, and it will be my obsession between now and the COP in 2026. What is the framework to make it totally real and to be sure that, in the middle of the Pacific, in the middle of the Indian Ocean, in the middle, when we go to Antarctica, in this newly protected area, we deploy common capacities to make sure that BBNJ will be implemented. This is now our challenge. But now, so enforcement is key. This is a challenge. Antarctica, as you mentioned, and Arctica are two key areas where we have now to work very hard to make sure that we deploy the same type of organization and protect. And that we set up a new type of cooperation in order to make it possible. But there is a new frontier, and Sylvia is my inspiration for that. It's deep sea mining. So we are some countries, and we decided to team up in order to mobilize ourselves and to work very hard to allow science to be deployed, but to have this moratorium to be implemented on all these activities in deep sea mining. So we enlarged the club, but clearly we have to mobilize. So I count on you, because this is just a beginning. This is just the beginning. And thanks to your mobilization, thanks to so many activists and NGOs, we managed to stop many projects, even in some countries which sometimes didn't join our coalition, but it worked. And I think it's very important because it's always the same approach. It's how to stop some crazy activities when science didn't yet fix the reality. So it's super important that we follow up the effort on deep sea mining, and I count on you. And it will be core for the COP for oceans. At the same time, I want to also to welcome the entry into force on the WTO agreement. On fisheries subsidies, because it's clearly one of the major successes that we build all together. And my sister Ngozi, thank you very much for your mobilization. We work very hard. And a lot of people say WTO. I mean, no, I will not repeat it. But, yeah. And the best evidence was precisely the fact that you managed to sign this agreement. You delivered. We delivered. But this agreement is super important because it will stop this, this illegal fishery subsidies, and it will clearly allow us to implement one of the key commitments we took in Nice in the Common Declaration. So it's once again a game changer. And my last point is about science again. We decided a series of operations and new big projects, and Neptune is a very important project as well. And I want to thank the scientists being mobilized in this operation, but I want to thank some of the philanthropists and foundations which will work closely with us and with the team in order to make it possible alongside the French government, the European Commission, a lot of governments being here. Gabriel, you mentioned the headquarters of BBNJ and so on. I already took my commitments in Valparaiso. So I already disclosed my position. I'm a little bit conflicted because normally there is a European solidarity, because at the time I was not even aware that Belgium was candidate. But I back you, clearly Valparaiso, so we will deliver. And I want to thank all of you. All of you as individuals, as scientists, as activists, as indigenous people, head of state of government, as member of your parliament, as CEOs of your foundations or industrials. Because 5 years ago, when we started to work very hard on this coalition with Costa Rica, and I want just to pay tribute to Costa Rica as well, because we were together and we worked very hard. And my good friend Ricardo was with me, and we worked very hard, hand in hand. When we started this mobilization, a lot of people were super, super skeptical. You will never sign BBNJ. The 30%, the 30 by 30, forget it. And deep sea mining was not even mentioned. It was 5 years ago, in this crazy world, when nothing seems feasible when we speak about cooperation. We signed, we ratified BBNJ. 30 by 30 was part of Kunming Montreal. Deep sea mining, we have the moratorium, and we will enlarge the club. And we have all the scientific operation in 5 years' time. 5 years. Why? Because of this multi-stakeholders approach. Because of this collaboration between governments, NGOs, scientists, industrials, foundations. This is the way to work in this current world. This is the only way to work. Being mobilized, deciding to cooperate, and step up, act, and guess what? Accelerate. So now we will have to work like crazy between Nice to New York. It was a super journey, but it's not yet finished. Now it's from New York to COP for Oceans next year, and I continue to deliver greater success again. So thank you very much for your work. Thank you for your mobilization. Thank you for all this great work in common. But I try to just describe a little bit of what we will have to do all together for the years to come. I count on you, and you can count on us as well. Thank you very much, and thank you to the team. Thank you. And I count on you, John.